So the community here is moving into the second month of the winter retreat, and our opportunity to settle and focus on the more formal aspects of the meditation practice. Of course, myself, along with a group of others, only fairly recently got back from Thailand, and I'm only, I don't know about the others. I think they're getting into the swing of things a bit quicker than me, but I've been taking a while to shake off jet lag, and finally made it to morning puja this morning. It's been it's been taking a while. But it's just really wonderful to come back into a retreat atmosphere, and just having that rhythm of practice happening, and we're having readings every day, and just reflecting on teachings, and having that those reminders and parameters of practice to be as a constant theme. One of the I think one of the, say, doubts or certainly questions that come up is when we reflect on the Buddha's teachings and the Buddha's path of practice, much is made of it, emphasis is put on it being a middle way. And then when you try to think in terms of, well, what is a middle way? And is it just say a middle way of just some wishy-washy splitting the difference of things that between the things you like or prefer and the things you don't like, or the ways that you think about it? And of course, that's obviously not the way. And but sometimes it's hard to get a feel for what this middle way is, a practice. I mean, of course, the Buddha's path of practice is say, Eightfold Path, beginning from the right view down to right samadhi, right concentration, and I was reflecting on it. And one of the things that came up as a way of reflecting on how do we know that we're practicing middle way? What's the flavor? What's the what is the constituents of a middle way, as opposed to the details of it. Well, what's that actually? What's that flavor of it? What's its essence? And then also, what do we have to do to implement a middle way that would lead us to an experience of freedom from dukkha, freedom from suffering, really to experience the fruits of the practice. And just recollecting that there's just so many discourses where the Buddha's teaching, and he's pointing out the different aspects of practice, different kind of structures of practice, whether it's an Eightfold Path or, say, the four paths of success, or the bases of success, the Itipadas, or the, say, 5 spiritual faculties, 7 factors of enlightenment, and then and there's discourses where the Buddha speaks of these, implementing these aspects of practice, or these structures for practice, and in conjunction with, say, each factor that one is paying attention to, but each factor is then one has to bring the qualities of say, in the Pali, viveka, viraka, nirodha, vosaka, which are of solitude, of dispassion, of cessation, of relinquishment. And I think that is the kind of the essence of, or the flavor of what, both in terms of when we're practicing and implementing the path, and we're trying to focus on where are we, whether it's developing our various spiritual faculties, or particular aspect of either putting forth effort or investigation, but those having to bring into being and to inform our practice with those qualities. And similarly, when we are practicing and we're wondering, okay, am I on the right path here? Am I going in the right direction? And those are the qualities one needs to be looking at and recollecting. Are those qualities there when in our different directing of attention and directing of effort? Are those qualities of, is there a feeling of solitude or seclusion? Is there a feeling of dispassion? Is there a feeling of cessation, of relinquishment, or an experience of that? So those are so I think these qualities are really extremely important, and to be bringing them to mind, and that sense of viveka, of solitude and seclusion, which is, say, both physical, the willingness to step back from kind of the engagement or entanglement of the world, to a certain extent some duties or responsibilities, which isn't sort of a total shunning, but it's being able to pull back, to not be so consumed by either one's fascination or one's feeling of expectation that one has to engage in some way with the world, but there's an ability to step back from that, and to a certain extent a delight in that. It's okay. This is a good opportunity to step back, to give myself a break from either the impingement or the entanglement of the world, in particular just of the world of the senses. And so that inclination to seclusion, and as I said, it doesn't mean you have to go off into a cave and not have any contact with anybody, but to pay attention to that. Sometimes we really do need a break from the either the activity or the engagement and with the world, and and similarly with just say the engagement with the digital world of our either social media or news or communication, to be able to step back from that. There's a seclusion that is required, and that physical stepping back or moving back. And of course, that these different classically the point to the different layers of seclusion, of say the physical seclusion, kaya viveka, so that in terms of action and speech, and then citta viveka is in terms of the mind willing to step back, to delight in seclusion, to be able to put the world of engaging in the sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, and mental formations, moods, and to delight in cultivation of mindfulness and clear comprehension, delight in the development of peaceful, still states of mind, and that seclusion. It's like in the description of the development of say right concentration. It's secluded from sensuality, thoughts of sensuality, secluded from unwholesome states of mind. That's the sort of your entry, moving towards development of the meditation practice, that it requires a certain seclusion. The other seclusion is our last seclusion on a refined level, internal level of being and becoming, just the seclusion of the upadhi is the word, and it's that identification with the just with the five khandhas. This is me, this state of being, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, the whole identifying and engaging in that quest for being, becoming, or negating, pushing it away. So it's that staking one's claim on the five khandhas as mine. This is me. This is who I am. And just how the mind gets constantly moving, constantly shaken by that identification. So this attention to viveka and sense of solitude, seclusion, and I think to a certain degree what it requires is a willingness to be content within oneself. Again, it's not because you're having to push away and fend off the world. Now, the world is always going to be there. There's always going to be feelings and thoughts and perceptions and memories. But are we content within ourselves? And that's it's a really important aspect of seclusion. There's aspects of like gratitude and contentment. Those are really foundational qualities for the ability to delight in seclusion. And sometimes it's easy to sort of think, form some kind of misanthropic idea of seclusion and solitude. It's like, I'm going to be by myself because other human beings are so pathetic and irritating. So then, but that isn't seclusion. It was already formed an idea and an aversion, and that doesn't really work. It doesn't make the mind peaceful. But a quality of seclusion that's informed with gratitude and contentment. There's these very wholesome states of mind where one is willing to and able to be content and happy within oneself, and that's important or essential, because the experience of this middle way is freedom from suffering. That's the whole point of the middle way, is to freedom from suffering, freedom from things that taint the mind, disturb the heart in some way, so that this access to that which is truly peaceful. So that paying attention to not just to solitude as say an ideal of being alone, but being a sense of solitude from the moving out to the world, the moving out to memory, the moving out to proliferation, so that there's that inner contentment and well-being has to be fostered and established in order for this quality of seclusion to really take hold within the heart. The aspect of dispassion, viveka, viraga, dispassion. It's the word viraga is dispassion is a good translation. I see it translated sometimes as fading away, and that's letting those passion, attachment, entanglement, the willingness to let it fade away, because it's we feed it. And that's what passion is, in the sense of we feed something that is we're hooked on, entangled with, caught by, and to let it fade away. A sense of cool. The aspect of cooling is really. Of course, those images of cooling come from India, where it's hot a lot of the time. I just came back from Thailand, so this feeling of, God, it's so good to be back. It's cool. Well, that sense of cooling is really settling and very nourishing. Where one isn't sort of heated, stirred up, and you can feel that in the mind, where the mind gets all hot. I mean, we have the idiom in English, hot and bothered, and then that sort of that mind of being hot and bothered, agitated by the desire, attachment to something outside. So that sense of dispassion, being able to see things clearly, both externally, internally, and to take an interest in that dispassion, and that. I mean, it works both in terms of just the external world, but also, especially when we're thinking of the say our meditation, to be able to be to sustain an interest in something that is peaceful and settled. Like there's a a phrase that's used by the Buddha when he describes viraga, dispassion, and what is dispassion, and it's that this is peaceful, this is sublime. That is the stilling of all formations, the relinquishment of acquisitions, dispassion, nibbana, cessation, nibbana. So there's this sense of that sense of this is peaceful, this is sublime, and there's a sense of cooling and settling, and a certain refinement of one's what one's taking as a worthy object of attention, and to be able to delight in that. So that quality of cooling, of dispassion, in the sense of, and it doesn't mean one doesn't feel anything. It's just one isn't stirred up by it. It's like being able to recognize, okay, there's things that tend to where one would incline to liking that, wanting that, or disliking it, not wanting it. But one's seen it so often, and seeing it keeps resulting in the same thing. It's this sense of dissatisfaction and discontent. So bringing up dispassion, a sense of cooling, of settling, because it's just so much more satisfying to be with that which is settled and clear. This is peaceful. This is sublime. That leading the the heart in that direction, encouraging it. And of course, and when, especially in terms of, we're thinking in terms of middle way of practice, the middle way of the teaching, and that as we cultivate those aspects of, say, of sila, this conduct that is has integrity and virtue. It's not that it's done out of fear or that it's done out of any kind of compulsion or compunction. Because it is actually settling. It's actually, that is a middle way where we live with that integrity, and that is something that is, it's not bound up with suffering. Of course, these other aspects of the and same with the meditation, same with the aspects of investigation of wisdom, discernment. Those informing that and recognizing that it does lead, this middle way is a way to enter into these qualities, and of course, they inform each other back and forth. And it's the quality of cessation, of the letting things come to stillness, letting things end, letting things cease. It's like that because we're always trying to tweak it, or always trying to somehow make it better, make it different, make it something more refined, more of this, more of that, less this, less that. I mean, it's just there's this constant search for what's right. But what is right is usually coming from the conceiving mind, how one has conceived it, the idea that one has about it, and there's this endless concern or doubt as to what it could be, because it could be anything. But that willingness to let things come to an end, to cease, and then not to stir it up again, not to make it something else. It's like that Lumpur Samedo's encouragement and instruction to be reflecting. It's like this. It's like this, and it's just being able, and to let it be like that. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's good or bad, whether it's something that you like or dislike. It's like this, and then to let it cease, not to be able to really inhabit that experience and let it be, to let it cease, and to let that mind that wants to get in there and either doubt about it or worry about it or make it better, get rid of it, all of that is the becoming mind. And that is a place of dukkha. That's not a place of peace. And so it's like this. And to be able to see how the mind is looking for a way to be, to become, to get rid of, to make it into something else, and to realize in that cessation is peace. That is our this is peaceful. This is sublime, and that sense of letting things cease and to stay with that quality of ceasing. And of course, as one works with that, mind goes kind of nuts. Actually, I got to do something. I got to be something. What am I if I'm not being something or doing something? And of course, that's where one starts to learn from that and realize, when one releases and relinquishes, and it's the last part of that, vosaka, is relinquishment, releasing, letting go. That letting things cease is a relinquishment of the identification and the relinquishment of that sense of I and me and mine that is so intrinsic to our experience, that's exactly what the Buddha points to as this aspect of that establishing of a sense of identity, of me, of mine, the I am. In that is where we keep building our dukkha, and it isn't and again, it's not a negation of self, it's not an annihilation of self, but it's a willingness to let it cease and to let go and to release and to relinquish and realize that the space and clarity that comes from that relinquishment is that just as this is peaceful, this is sublime. And it's in the experience, and that's as we continue to practice with and reflect on, investigate this middle way, and start seeing, as we develop the meditation, as we continue to refine our mindfulness and awareness, as the mind settles and clarifies, as we investigate, it comes back to these particular qualities of relinquishment, of cessation, of dispassion, of seclusion, and getting a feel for what that what that means on an experiential level, and just toying with, presenting the mind with that possibility, because so often we're trying to fit the mind into some ideas of, well, what is this middle way, but then on an experiential level, realizing, these are qualities that we have to pay attention to, both as implementing them or encouraging the mind, but then also reflecting as well. Is that the experience? Is there experience feel like there's a sense of seclusion, a sense of dispassion, sense of ceasing, sense of relinquishment. And that's where we gain our confidence in this middle way, because it really does feed back into this experience of the mind, the heart really brightening and becoming increasingly peaceful, increasingly sublime. It just is a natural result of the practice. So it's like that, giving oneself to this middle way of practice, and realizing that the teachings that the Buddha gives us. I mean, there are many tools, many different approaches, as I say, just like there's Eightfold Path, and all that implies, and factors of enlightenment, and different ways of approaching those. But then the underlying expression of that and feeling tone of that is around these qualities, and so just to be lifting that up in the mind as we continue to develop the practice, and particularly during winter retreat time. It is a time of settling. It is a time of pulling back, and to really give oneself the encouragement and perspectives that allows one to really taste the fruits of this practice. So offer that for reflection this afternoon.